Hey guys, my name is Wildkard and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for subscribing to my contents, I really do appreciate it. It's Tuesday, isn't it? It's Newsday, I'm pretty sure. Let's have a look at what's been happening in the world of union. Now, the biggest talking point from last weekend, obviously, Quade freaking Cooper came back to the Wallabies after almost 4 years being out of the loop. He's back and he's better than before. Like, his kicking has never been a big plus for Quade. Quade has always been known as a running game, but his goal kicking was sublime on the weekend. Perfect goal kicking, and essentially won the game that Australia was the second team on the field. Quade's kicking really just held Australia in place, and including a last-minute kick from 40 meters out from an angle, a massive angle almost from the sideline, to seal the deal over the world champion Springboks. That was super impressive. I couldn't believe what I saw, and there's a lot of media about Quade, so maybe I thought I'd talk a little bit about Quade and maybe tell you a little bit of his background that you wouldn't know about, right? So if you're a Springbok, all right, or if you're a South African, you probably just know Quade as that flair guy that does a lot of good plays, and then just like choked and fell out of favor. I never heard of him again. And if you're a Kiwi, you probably know him as public enemy number one for pushing Richie McCaw. How dare you put the hands on Richie? Sir Richie is a saint. Okay, how dare you, Quade? Okay, so you probably know him as public enemy number one, that you have successfully destroyed and removed from Australian rugby. So that's probably, the Kiwis will be pretty proud on that. And if you're a northerner, I'm talking about Northern Hemisphere, you're probably just thinking, hey, how many fly halves the Australians wants to run, okay? They seems to have changed their fly half more often than England changing their head coaches. What's going on? I can't keep in track with all of these, so you probably have no idea what's going on. But anyway, so for an Australian, Quade, I just want to give you the perspective of like Quade. Quade was a really, really huge deal in Australia in the before 2000 and around 2011, before 2011. He's a really huge deal. Like, you would not believe, nowadays there's a lot of saying, oh, high school protege, yada yada yada. Like, nowadays it's so easy to be a high school protege. You get the All Blacks to post a video of you playing against another school, and suddenly, oh my god, this guy, another high school protege, oh my god. Like, nowadays with social media and everything, it's much easier to be high school protege. But like Quade, I kid you not, he is legit high school protege. Like, I kid you not, this guy, in 2006, I went to a rival school. He went to Anglican Church Grammar School in Brisbane. I went to a rival school. Okay? In 2006, there was no social media. So like, Facebook was just getting started. Like, making rugby videos on YouTube, it's a stupid idea because nobody knows nobody will watch you, and there's no such a thing being a YouTuber, right? And in that environment, and the schools that we went to were all boys schools, and like, we had pretty like heavy rivalries against other schools, and it's pretty much like frowned upon to even like talk to people from another school. So we're all like closed up in our own schools, and we genuinely hated our rivals, right? And in an environment like that, Quade Cooper was known by everyone. Everyone from every school, all the rival schools knows him. Like not because of social media, everybody just knows him because he's a freak at rugby. Like, I kid you not, he was famous before he's even had a professional contract amongst rival schools. I kid you not. And how did he become so famous? There was a rumor, and this is the rumor that I heard. I kid you not, this is a rumor I heard, and that's been went around all the schools in Brisbane, rival schools in Brisbane that played rugby union, that is, that Quade was apparently playing rugby and for Churchy, and one of the kids, or maybe one of the kids' dad works for the Reds rugby union. And he watched Quade play, and often a contract right there on the spot. And Quade was apparently too young to even accept the contract. That was the rumor that was going around. And everybody knew who Quade Cooper was. I knew the name Quade Cooper before I knew what he looked like. Okay, there was no internet on your phone. You can't just Google someone. And like by the way, like you can't actually like that's the thing. You couldn't even like find photos of Quade because Facebook didn't even like he wasn't even on Facebook back then. There was not even a thing. Maybe he was, but you know, Facebook wasn't a big thing. So I had no idea what Quade even looked like until we played him in rugby. But I knew his name like 6 months, a year before I've actually seen him in person, or like seen his face, put a face to the name. That's how big of a deal Quade Cooper was in high school. And when we played him in school, there was by far the biggest crowd that showed up to watch him play. And I remember pre-game, everybody was talking about who's going to put a shot on Quade. Everybody was talking about, putting a shot. Like our fly hard was like, I'm going to take him out. I'm going to take him out. It's just like, it's so full on back then. And like, it was such a huge thing. Just like, this is in high school. He didn't even have a contract for any professional team yet. And everybody knew who he was. Like, this was legitimate high school prodigy right there, dude. I kid you not. And like, I still remember when we played Churchy, we had kids, like classmates, that was talking about if we beat Churchy, if we beat Quade, they were gonna risk getting expelled by doing it, like, by stripping naked and running onto the field. Like, I kid you not, like, that's how much this, like this rivalry was. Like, they were happy to get expelled to just to celebrate beating Quade Cooper in rugby. Okay, that's just like, you know, my experience with Quade from like high school times. Like, yeah, he was a huge deal. And sure enough, he finished high school, got the rocket strapped on his back, straight into the Reds Academy. And I think he debuted for the Reds his first year out in 2007. And then he played for the Wallabies 2 years later in 2009 when he was only like, 19 or 20. And then in 2011, he was only like, 2011, he was only, he was 18 in 2006, 19, 20, he was 22? Yeah, he was like 22. And when he won Super Rugby, everybody, like, seriously, everybody thought we're going to win the Rugby World Cup in 2011 in New Zealand. We're going to go to New Zealand and smash you because Quade, in Super Rugby 2011, Quade was like God mode. Like, his like flick passes is just like just overall like overall playmaking was just insane. Was like God tier. Okay, like just the passes that he's able to throw. It's just like you can't even believe that people would like just random flick passes that goes for like 15-20 meters, like pinpoint accurate. You don't even think that's possible, right? That's how good Quade was. And then he kind of maybe got a bit too ahead of himself, and then yeah, you know, everybody knows what happened then. He kind of just fell apart, started to not taking rugby as seriously as he should, and then leading to him leaving Wallabies and then getting kicked out of the Reds. And then going over to Japan. So there was an interview came out last week where Quade Cooper talked about him doing some soul searching in Japan, and he's like beginning to realize, you know, this is what we want from the Wallabies, to have that resilience to bounce back. This is what I think a lot of CEOs should need to be able to, like, you know, get kicked out of the team and to come back with your talents. So he went to do some soul searching, figuring out himself, like worked on his game, and realizing that rugby is not everything. He's found happiness outside of rugby. He talked about that in an interview last week. And then basically, yeah. So he also talked about what else? Yeah. So, and also he talked about how he was staying with Sonny Bill Williams in his home, and like he learned a lot about how to, you know, be a better person by being around Sonny Bill Williams, by watching him. He talked about that after the game. And quite a story. And like this whole thing with him coming back to rugby kind of started with a tweet. So he was tweeting about how he got denied for for citizenship, again, by Australia. And this tweet was literally kind of like the spark that put him on the radar on the coaches. This tweet literally was put out just before the Wallabies were about to select their team to go over to New Zealand. And as a result of the lockdowns, the Wallabies only had access to people from like Queensland and Melbourne. They couldn't get access to people from New South Wales at that time to go to New Zealand because the people from New South Wales couldn't get exemption. So Quade was put in to the Wallabies team as a reserve to Lolosio to go overseas. And that's all just history. Lolosio had blown his chances 3 games in a row against the All Blacks. And finally, due to pressure from the media, and I guess it just makes sense as well for the coach's point of view, Quade was put into 5'8" last weekend, and he just, man, like he's a different person. I've noticed that his kicking has changed. Like his kicking, he used to pose. All of you guys will remember, he used to pose with his hands out like this, like he's some kind of Superman or something. He doesn't do that anymore. He just stands up still. He's improving his kicking technique, and it's just pinpoint accurate. I'm really, really proud of this guy, to be honest, and I'm really happy because we've put a lot of hopes into him to take us to the World Cup in early 2010s, and this is a good opportunity for him to redeem himself for 2023. So I look forward to him to be to take us to somewhere to fulfill his destiny. And sure enough, as soon as he won, took Australia to beat the Springboks, the Australia, they changed citizenship rules for him. We actually changed our citizenship rules for Quade Cooper, for winning rugby. Citizenship rule changed, so now he's eligible to get an Australian citizen. So apparently the reason he was rejected was because he was traveling a lot overseas to play in Japan, and under the citizenship rule, you can't leave Australia for extended period of time if you want to be a citizen. So yeah, they've come out with a thing called like extraordinary talent for being able to travel overseas for their talented work and still be able to qualify for citizenship. So yeah, so we literally changed the rules to allow Quade Cooper to finally become a citizen. Now let's talk about the game. So the game has been probably the biggest thing was 100 Pollars kicking came out for the Springboks. The Springboks really played pretty good overall, but the 100 Pollard kicked a few really kind of like goals that shouldn't be missed, including one where he's pretty much like right in front and he kicked and hit the goalpost, and that was a bit of a poor performance. There's been a lot of discussions about whether they should bring in Morné Stein to fill 100 Pollar's kicking maybe in the second half, and also it was a bit of a weird decision to put Damien Valemsi, who would normally known as a fullback, to come in for 100 Pollard at 10 position, who had to take a kick that was, again, quite easy, considering, and he missed the conversion. The last try, Springboks could have been a draw. So, yeah, there was just a big question marks there. So there was talks about maybe they shouldn't run the bomb squad in games like this where they, even if you run the bomb squad, the whole point of having the bomb squad is to kind of like dominate the breakdowns, to dominate the forward, the set pieces, and to get yourself those opportunities for the 3 points. And if you get those opportunities for 3 points and you can't capitalize with your poor kicking, the whole point of like having a bomb squad doesn't really make sense. Like a big part of it doesn't make sense anymore. So maybe having an extra, like a backup kicker instead of having the bomb squad would work out a little bit better for the Springboks. There was some talks about, amongst the Springboks pundits about that. And then Sia Khaleesi talked about after the game that the current game plan of kicking and just being up to dominate up front and solid defense is still their number one game plan. And they just kind of like mismanaged a little bit this week, and especially with poor discipline around the breakdowns, like Australia did able to force a lot of penalties in kicking range for Australia, which allowed Australia to tick the scoreboard over to stay ahead of the Springboks. So I do think that by watching the game, so I've, let's actually just go over to the overview. So the Springboks did actually score more tries over the Wallabies, and 3 tries, and they're all rolling mauls. So the mauls was a big issue for the Wallabies to deal with. So overall, the Springboks were really dominant in their kicking game. The fast to close kicking left and right are really able to stretch the Wallabies in the back line, in the backfield, to try to cover those kicks. especially at the start of the game. But towards towards the end of the game, Wallabies did able to kind of like manage it a bit better and get themselves back a bit with the kicking game. Springboks defense once again excellent again, and Wallabies were only able to score one try when the Springboks had a person in the sin bin and not able to score any tries afterwards. So it was just super impressive defense once again by the Springboks. However, in there's definitely a lot of holes that the Books need to work on for the next week against the Wallabies again. So the attacking pattern was a little bit, I was not able to put much pressure on the Wallabies. Outside of just a few hard running with their centers, Damien Delende and Lukam Yuan, outside of them being able to do a few hard running, there really isn't much pressure from the Springbok attack. I'm thinking maybe if you are going to put those kicking games, if you are going to play like kicking game, let me just get the line a bit. If you are going to play the kicking game, maybe instead of just only do the high balls behind the attacking line, maybe try a little bit of grubber kick behind the attacking line. Just to mix it up a little bit, because the high ball becomes a little bit predictable in that sense for the Wallabies to deal with. So the scrums for the Springboks once again struggled a little bit in the first half with Malherbe against Angus Bell giving away 2 penalties in the first half, which resulted in 6 points. So Angus Bell really earned his starting spot for the Wallabies and just excellent. Literally, he earned 6 points for the Wallabies. That was very, very impressive, including tight head wins against Malherbe. The line-out was pretty good for the Springboks. And also, especially with the set piece more for the Springboks, was just like the Wallabies could not stop them all, basically. 3 tries from the rolling more, Wallabies couldn't stop. And a yellow card for trying to defending the rolling more as well. Just like absolute devastating. And that also played into the bomb squad as well. Having an extra person on the field, fresh forward on the field, really gave that extra go forward for the Springboks. So we've already talked about Pollar's kicking and the really like weird decision to put Willemse at number 10. I mean, if you are going to, I think it was like a last minute decision to put Willemse at number 10 because if they did wanted to put someone on for kicking, they would have put Monet Stein in or Elton Yenshis at reserve, but they have Willemse in at number 10. So I think that's probably like a last minute thing for them, like literally during the game. Maybe Pollar had a bit of a niggling pain or something. Maybe had a bit of was hurt. That's why they took him off. But it was pretty weird to see Willemse at 10, especially when they do have very solid 10s on the in the squad to back up. For the Wallabies, massive improvements for the defense. I think there was only 4 missed tackles for the whole game, and normally Lolosea will miss 4 tackles by himself. So it was really, really good to see that massive improvement for the Wallabies. Michael Hooper, once again, huge work rate, just all around the park, setting up that little, made a few like line breaks as well for himself. And also just huge work rate on the breakdown, turning over the ball. They turned over so many balls. It was just so impressive to see Michael Hooper just absolutely dominating the breakdown. He's by far the best number 7 in the world right now. I'm very, very proud of this man. So the Wallabies' discipline did need to improve a little bit. They was still giving away a bit more penalties than we'd like. Line-out set piece, more defense. Really need to improve. The scrum was good whilst Angus Bell was on the field in the first half, but the Tongan Thor really struggled in the second half against Ox Lynch and Vincent Koch. So Jem Slipper as well in the second half was really struggling against the Springbok scrum. But the Tongan Thor did manage to win, dominate the scrum in the last scrum that won the Wallabies the penalty. They did manage to win that one, the one that we really needed them to win. They did win that, but overall they were on the back foot in the second half. There was sublime kicking from Quade. Well, that's not much I can say. His playmaking around the park. So his playmaking around the park has been not as flashy as he used to be, but it's just very solid stuff. Dave Remy did talk about wanting Quade to play into a set structure. So I'm guessing that's just Quade playing into the structure that the coach wanted him to play. Not going to throw those crazy loopy flick passes that could potentially get intercepted. Just solid traffic directing. His kicking game around the field probably could improve a little bit. There was a few kicks where I was like, where he just kicked the ball straight down center of the field. If Cheslin Kobe was on the field to receive that, I thought that would have been very, very, very dangerous for the Springboks. But Cheslin Kobe was not playing due to an injury, so his on-field kicking definitely could be improved. And something that, if Cheslin Kobe was on the field, could have gone bad. In terms of our attacking game on the back line, Samuel Currie and Corin Beatty was really, really instrumental at taking the ball going forward, taking over the advantage line. The only two people were able to get over the advantage line against the Springboks, especially Samuel Currie, just very, very impressive. Just once again, just massive, massive line breaking for Currie, even against the best defense in the world. Very, very impressed by that. Callaway, once again, very good on the win, getting the only try for the Wallabies. So, yeah, match stats. Much more run meters for the Wallabies. Turnover conceded 10 for both teams. 5 missed tackles. I said 4. 5 missed tackles for the Wallabies. 21 missed tackles for the Springboks. That is actually the worst Springboks have done for like this in 2021. This is the worst in 2021 the Springboks has done. They're usually below they're usually like around 10. Kicks in play 38, a little bit lower than they did with the Argentina. 20 for the Wallabies. A lot more running game. Sublime kicking for the Wallabies. Lineouts lost, so 1 for both teams. Scrums 1 for both teams. So a bit of a 50-50 for both teams. Good for the first half of the Wallabies. Bad for the Wallabies in the second half. Penalties conceded for the Wallabies 17. That's really needs to improve on that for the Wallabies. 11 for the Springboks. Not great, but still more than enough for the Wallabies to sneak out a win. 2 yellow cards for both teams. Once again, due to pressure. Now, second game of the week, or should I say the first game that was played, was the All Blacks playing the Pumas. Dominated the Pumas with sublime performance. So just a quick recap on the game. So just going to this game. So Pumas did talk about after the game that they only had 4 training sessions in South Africa against South Africa. Ledesma did talk about how his team has to be in quarantine all the time, even though they're in bubble. They travel to Europe in quarantine. They travel to South Africa in quarantine. Now they've been in Australia in quarantine, so they really can't get that much training session together. And also, he also talked about the removal of the Super Rugby team. What is it? Was it? What's the team? I can't even remember. Is it? Anyway, so they also talk about their Super Rugby team being removed, so all the players weren't able to play together during the Super Rugby. That really did set them back as well. So yeah, another really tough day in the office for the Pumas. The All Blacks completely shut out the Pumas, and this was a very, very dominant performance by the All Blacks. The All Blacks had over 70% territory and possession, and it was just So basically, All Blacks overwhelmed the Argentinas with their kicking and with attacking. So the Argentina could not get out of their own half for most of the game. When they did get out their own half for the very few opportunities inside the All Blacks half, the attacking was too flat. The All Blacks defense was spectacular. Probably the best defense I've seen from the All Blacks this year. And the All Blacks were able to force a lot of turnovers at the breakdown in defense. However, the All Blacks was not perfect in their performance. They lost 2. There was like a period in the first half for about 30 minutes where the All Blacks were not able to score any points despite having a lot of territory, and that's all came down to just their own mistakes. They lost 2 of the lineouts back to back in good attacking opportunities. They lost a lot of the balls in the breakdown in their own attack, so they really need to work on that ball security in attack. The scrums in the first half was also under a little bit of pressure as well for the All Blacks. Beauden Barrett. We need to talk about Beauden Barrett. His goal kicking has been awful again. He missed a really easy kick that was right in front. His attack was a little bit flat when he was on the field, so he wasn't able to really direct any attack patterns, especially in the first half during that 30 minutes where All Blacks couldn't get in on the get over the try for a try. Sometimes I did notice Beauden gets himself caught out of position to set up the attack pattern, so he ends up being caught in the breakdown, or he gets the ball and he couldn't get the ball past the way gets too flat when he receives the ball and he just gets tackled, basically. So Bowden, really needs to improve on his work into. I actually would not be surprised if D-Mac starts at 10 next week, because Bowden, not very good. So D-Mac came up for Bowden in the second half, much better in organizing the attacking options, a bit more flair. When D-Mac was on the field, like I said, his attack patterns look a lot better, but his ball handling accuracy is a little bit off. So some of his passes weren't really going to, the breadbasket, so to speak. And Geordie, the freak Barrett, is by far the best Barrett in New Zealand right now. He took over the kicking for Bowden and just landed 100% of the kicking. You know how this says Barrett here, right? But what he doesn't say is this is actually Geordie Barrett. After this one, all the rest of it will actually Geordie Barrett, not Bowden. So Bowden is only got one from this, and all the rest was Geordie. So Geordie Barrett seemingly having inherited the best and worst of both his brothers. Inherited the red card trait from Scott, and inherited the kicking trait from Bowden for when he was good. So Geordie Barrett is definitely the cream of the crop for the Barrett family. And there was one point where I thought he had the ability to levitate off the ground. There was one point where Bowden Barrett kicked the high ball into the end zone, and I kid you not, Geordie Barrett, this went a little bit too far, so it was just about it was like almost to the dead ball line. Geordie Barrett jumped up. He caught the ball up here, okay? And as he's falling down, he brings the ball from up here all the way down and plants the ball just on the dead ball line, almost scoring the try. And I kid you not, he did all this without his foot touching the ground. I don't know how. I don't know how you can jump up, catch the ball, bring the ball from up here all the way down to the ground without your foot touching the ground in one motion. I like, if you watch the replay, he seemed to know that his foot is gonna touch the ground. He lifted his knees, so his foot was, instead of getting close to the ground, his foot seemingly was going further up off the ground, because he was bending, lifting his foot up, and it literally looked like he was levitating. It's just I don't know. It literally looked like he was levitating. It's just the freakiest thing I've ever seen. And go watch it if you have the VOD. It's insane. And I don't know how it's just a freak. But for Argentina, it was really good, great defense for Argentina. But the breakdown was pretty good in the first half, but then just fell apart in the second half. We're giving away way too many penalties. The kicking game was really struggling against the All Blacks. And when they were attacking Argentina, they probably should have played more territory instead of trying to run the ball. They kind of try to play All Blacks game into the All Blacks by running the ball, and they're really just not getting anywhere, and then just end up getting the ball turned over around the halfway point, and then the All Blacks just kick the ball back down into your own half and ping you back down into your own 22 again. So maybe should have played a bit more territory against the All Blacks instead of trying to run the ball against a very solid defense. The line-out steals was pretty impressive in the first half. Scrum was pretty good for the Argentinians. But yeah, overall, the Argentina had one chance to kick for 3 points, which was 50 meters out. And Sanchez did not convert that, and that was it. Tough day in the office for the Argentinians. Some other news. The Sharks was lost to the Bulls in Currie Cup. The Bulls actually has a pretty good team. They famously beat the South Africa A team in the Lions tour in one of the warm-up matches with a second half comeback. So very impressive players from the Bulls. 44 points to 10 to win the Currie Cup in South Africa. Garath Anscombe, is that his last name? He used to be the starting fly half over bigger for Wales. Maybe he was the reserve, but I've seen him start for Wales against England. So another one of those Welsh number 10s. He's back after a bit of injury since 2019. Almost 2 years took him out of a knee injury. Took him out for almost 2 years. So yeah, he's finally back. And there's another bit more news. World Rugby is considering hosting Rugby World Cup every 2 years. After FIFA came out, sort of said that they wanted to do soccer World Cup every 2 years. So Rugby World Cup wants to do every 2 years as well. I do think that's probably a bit too much, to be fair, because the rugby, we do have the Lions tour every 4 years in between, and I just think 2 years might be a bit of too much for me. As much as me wanting to watch Rugby World Cup every 2 years, I want to see the Rugby World Cup come around sooner. I do think 2 years might be too much. Maybe 3. I think 3 will be a good somewhere in between, but 4 years with the Lions tour in between. 2 years, I think that's just gonna be way too much. And you're just not gonna have. I think that's probably gonna be way too much, especially for. Soccer. They have such a huge global audience. To do 2 years, they will be able to. They can pull that off. But rugby, it's not nearly as popular as soccer. So every 2 years, no one's gonna be interested after after getting 3 Rugby World Cups in 6 years. No one's gonna be interested after that, right? Finally, the Springboks lost quite a bit of. This is kind of like fake news, I think. Springboks lost a few points, losing to the Wallabies. Wallabies moved up to 5th from 7th. And New Zealand getting closer to getting that number 1 spot. So, Rugby World Rankings, bit of a joke, but, something for people to talk about. Good clickbait. Thank you for watching the news, guys. And I'll see you guys a bit later this week for team announcements for the next round of Rugby Championship. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, post your comments. Let me know what you think about the news this week. And see you guys a bit later. Cheers.